Better to have a short life that is full of what you like doing than a long life spent in a miserable way.
Welcome to football.
You know, we are lucky. I mean, we're kind of like the next generation of this who's learning from guys like you who can kind of point out how to get through in the international with agents, with scouts, with CVs, with all of this. So like, can you just touch on that? Just being completely alone, just thrown into the deep end with the Wolves. Like, what was that like?
I think that's the main thing, is being okay, but being alone and being okay by struggling. And I learned to do that. And I just married to the game. It's kind of like, you know, those songs they say, you know, the rap songs.
Yeah.
It's true. Like, I was just married to the game, and this is what I want. I didn't feel alone, so I had that ball, and everything was with that ball, you know. And I think a lot of guys don't like to be uncomfortable. And I think all those years prepped me for now. I mean, I moved my whole life to another country. I had an amazing life back home with a business that was thriving. And I was like, this doesn't make me happy. I want to do what makes me happy. And I think that's what success is really chasing what you love. And you're going to be alone on that journey.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people think they want that, but when it actually happens, they're like, shit.
Like, I remember it was like, how, you know, yes, it's money, but like, what are you risking for this? You're going up against guys that will put down to their last cent to get a trial, to get a look. You know, it's so different.
People think about money, and that's a sacrifice. Like,
yeah,
my business partner tells me all the time, because you know, we've had money, we've grown a company. It doesn't make me happy. It comes, it goes. Like, what makes me successful, I think, and made us successful as a company is I'm happy to be on the field with a whistle and players. And I think when you do that, the money and everything comes.
100%.
I think
gotta
players
do what you
don't
love.
worry about their bank account.
If I mean, we've talked about it in verbatim on the podcast, but if there's one thing that I can give advice to any player out there, is you forget about the money. If you're focused on the money from the beginning, it's not going to work.
And that's the thing, is like, I don't remember one time going through the struggles where I was like, I need to make this much money. Right. I was just like, fuck, get me on a team that, if I can pay for housing, oh, thank God. And like, it led to making a lot of money a year, you know, as a player.
Yeah.
And everyone's first question, like, I get these top college guys that didn't get drafted, just went to a top D1. I speak to them about coming out, and they're like, well, how much do you think I can get paid if I make it in second division in Sweden? I'm just like, all right, my man, wishing you the best. We'll talk soon. I literally say that. I'm like, listen, you turn me off, I wish you the best of luck. Huh? And they can't understand it, and I don't have time to explain it.
And you just can't explain to people, why would you for example, why would you go play overseas and make $200 a month?
I love it.
Why would you do that? Why would you not stay home and you can make $4,000, $5,000 a month? Why would you go there and make $200 a month? And the experience is invaluable. And I'm growing at a player at such a faster rate. How I always mentioned it to people when I first started, I think of myself as a business. I'm growing myself as a business. My business is larger than it was 4 years ago. So my intrinsic value is now worth more. Maybe one day I'm going to get to a point where a club is willing to pay a lot of money for me. And that never would have happened if I said, oh, you know what, I'm just going to work a job and I'll play soccer on the side and I'll play, NPSL, PDL, maybe USL2 and make $500, $1,000 a month. Yeah, it's going to work out. But no. And what happens if I don't make it to a team that pays me $100,000, a month? Well, guess what? This experience is invaluable. It's priceless.
Sean, you just dropped such a gem. I mean, seriously, like, I hope people really understand that, and they won't. But like you said, you're your own business, right? So let's say you're creating experiences for yourself and knowledge, and which is going to help you make more money. But also, if you, like you just said, if you don't make more money, your business was all these, you invested in yourself, which is the business, to gain all this knowledge. So the next thing you're going to do is do that much success.
Exactly.
I hope they hear it's simple to listen to, but it's hard to feel. And I hope
Well, Byrne, we don't want to take too much of your time, so we'll get into it, okay?
I'm ready. I got my shin guards on. Let's go.
So, I mean, growing up in South Africa, you were in peak apartheid time, right?
Correct.
So what was that like to combine that with the football teams? Were you playing with only white children growing up and then in the professional, or did it change?
So growing up, all my life that I lived there, society was segregated. So we lived completely separate to the minorities. We didn't go to school with them. They didn't live in our communities, in our areas. They couldn't ride our buses, use our public toilets. I mean, when I think back of it now, it's just insane. And, you know, just being a young person, being born and raised there, that was what you knew. And, you know, sport was actually a huge part of breaking down apartheid. And soccer was because soccer was the sport of the minorities, of the blacks, that was the first sport in South Africa to be integrated. So as I was coming up, the leagues amalgamated and joined, and we started having, you know, minority players playing on the white teams and white players going in playing on some of the minority teams. And it was really crazy because, you know, I played for two majority white clubs, and we would go into Soweto, which is a township, you know, where, my gosh, you know, 6 million minorities lived, and we would go in and play at a stadium with 50, 60,000 all Africans in the stand. And, you know, there was, you know, 15 white soccer players, and the other team were mainly black with a couple of white guys, and that was the league. So we would go on road trips. We'd, you know, fly down to Cape Town and fly down to, you know, Durban and play games. And my first year, the African players on our team couldn't stay in our hotels. I mean, it's just mind-boggling to think about it. And then eventually that all changed, and, you know, we would stay in the international hotels. But yeah, really crazy. So that helped really break down the apartheid, you know, and the sport in South Africa. And then I'd left by the time, you know, Nelson Mandela was let out of jail and the apartheid crumbled, and they have the society they have today.
Like Foursquare, the app was about like getting people together to have good times at bars and restaurants and physical spaces. Like how do you use technology to bring people together? And that's kind of what Stockade is. Like Stockade is just like, there's guys running around on the field scoring goals, and we're playing in this league, right? But it's like you're bringing the community together. You're bringing 1,000 people from the community that may not know each other, right? Bringing them together to like cheer on the squad, cheer on the community, and that's really what it is. And so when I talk to other entrepreneurs outside of you know, people doing soccer stuff, and get them to focus, like, listen, it's not just about the 90 minutes on the field. It's about the, like, how do you create an environment where, you know, fans want to come because this is the most fun that they can have in a 2-hour span, right? On the weekend. And
it is too.
They want to bring their family. They want to bring their kids, right? That's like it's just a different way of thinking about it, but it's an important way of thinking about it.
Like, what are some of the things that you think are very important in creating a strong fan base?
I think that the transparency that our club has with the people is a major piece. Like, we're open, we're honest. They know they know that it's real. Like, those open and honest conversations that we have with the community really keeps them intertwined into the soul of our team.
Like small clubs that start and they try to feel bigger than they are. Like, oh, we have a front office and a president and such. And I always feel like we take the other approach. Like we go to Keegan's and we sell T-shirts out of a Tupperware container. And they're like, you're the chairman of the club? I'm like, yeah. And I'm also the chief T-shirt folder. That's how this operation is run.
I take both very seriously.
Yeah, exactly. You know, I remember just being so distracted by just like, we have a game. Now there's people playing. Okay, what's going on? The ref boy, 3 minutes in the game, the ref blows a whistle for something. And the crowd goes wild and everyone turns around and they're like, what? It's like, oh my God.
When did they get it? Yeah.
Right. It filled up so quick you didn't even realize. But at the end of the game, like unexpectedly, just all the kids ran down to the fence, right?
Oh,
and they all wanted autographs. And like nobody expected that. Nobody knew what to do. You know, Jamal, who is the captain, you know, took everyone together and was like, all right, it's great. Look at this crowd came out to support us. Here's what we're doing. Nobody goes inside until every single kid gets something signed. And, you know, Jamal's like, Dennis, you got pens? I'm like, I have one in my pocket. I have a Sharpie in my car, right? So we had like 3 pens for 800 kids, and we just stayed outside for like an hour. And that is the essence of like what the club is, right?
Yeah.
It's like we are here to serve the community, inspire the kids, give people a good time, be role models, be something people can aspire to. And parents will stop me and they'll be like, thank you so much for bringing this to town. Like all my kids want to do is play soccer now.
But I think also part of this too, like the typical medical school entrance, like for me, for example, I would have finished my bachelor's at 21 or 22, try to get into med school at 23, right? But I have no experience, right? You spent time working with the indigenous people in Australia, spent time in Mongolia with these people, spent time in Kenya for 3 years. I think you spent time in, what's that other African country? Malawi?
In Malawi as well.
Malawi. Yeah. You're coming into medical school with experience that it's priceless. And I feel that is worth so much more than doing it at an early age when you probably wouldn't have been focused, like you said. Uni wasn't your thing. You just kept your big toe kind of in that industry, but you're really more into music. And now I don't think it's a coincidence that you're doing your dream, what you're loving, what your passion was always for. And also you release an album and now that's getting the best reviews. You're doing both at the same time and they happen to both be at the best level you've ever done. I don't think it's just a coincidence because now you can do music as a passion, but this is not your career. You just love music, right? So you can do that. This is what you're really passionate about, but you also are passionate about this medical career. And this is something that is really fulfilling for you. Clearly, you've worked with just humanity for quite some time now in many different countries. I feel like there's a tie between these, that you happen to just put this album out while you're in medical school and you're getting the best reviews you've ever had.
Yeah, when you put it that way, it is, again, serendipitous, some kind of synchronicity that it's all kind of, and I'm in the best shape that I've been in, the other day I ran the farthest that I'm in a good spot actually. It's taken a while.
It's momentum, Yeah,
it is. You just keep, and you just kind of keep putting the little challenges in front of yourself. And, it does take a while to build up to that. It hasn't been easy. And I've wanted to do this for a while. So, if there's a lesson, it's kind of like, just because you fail once or twice, 10 times, doesn't mean it can't happen. You just got to keep trying at it. But when you've summed it up in a way that I haven't really thought about it, because I've just been playing, PlayStation, waiting for you to call me. So I've been sitting on my ass here doing nothing, feeling like a lazy ass. It's a, because I'm turning 40 next year. I was feeling a bit shit about it, but now I'm actually feeling pretty good about it.
You also touched on the highs and the lows of the professional game. So how do you stay mentally ready, just like dealing with that? Like, I know you mentioned to me one time there was, you play on a field that has like wood chips, and then like you're playing in a cup final and you're playing against like, you played against Newcastle in a friendly. Like the highs and the lows of the professional game, there's a huge area in between. So how do you deal with that mentally?
I don't know. Like I think mentally I'm just ready for all the lows, and guys are awesome. So like you just have to just go when you're going into it, you have to know like there's gonna be times when you're gonna be playing on a ship pitch in Madison with wood chips on it and like a Banter with 17 different lines on it, but the other team's playing on that same field. And then like I said to you, like the next week or the week before that, we were playing in David Beckham's new stadium. Yeah. And just for instance, for us, and like the same thing goes with training. Like with Darmstadt, I was training with a guy that would be out like before training, he'd smoke a cigarette. And then like that off season, I was training with David Villa in like New York City trainings. Like, it's just like vast changes. But I think like when you have the lows, you can appreciate like all the cool stuff that can come with it. Like all the friendlies or like guys you get to train with and like all the cool names you get to drop on podcast or like
the podcast. Yeah.
Yeah. So like, I think you have to just be like, I love the game and I love getting to travel. I love getting to do all this. So you're going to have to accept there's going to be some times where it's going to be not as glamorous as you might think, but that's why I think it all comes down to like, do you love the grind of playing? Like
100%.
If you love it, then you can do this for a long time. If you're decent enough, you don't even have to be great. You can just be pretty good.
You can find team.
Yeah, you can find teams. But if you don't love that grind, then go work JP Morgan or wherever you're going to work.
Yeah.
It's all about the process.
Man, it's quoting the podcast. You got to love it.
And then like he finally turns up and he brings us all in and he's like, guys, like I hate to tell you this, but like we're suspending like operations until further notice.
Oh man.
It's like, I know it was a bad loss, but goddamn.
Like, dude, talk about being like at an all-time high, like playing in front of like 8,000 people at Detroit City, and then like 2 weeks later, I was at the biggest low I've ever been like in my career.
And this is right after 2 contracts that you pressed through and like made the best out of, and then you finally like a full-time professional playing, and you said the best level you had so far, and it just gets taken away from you.
Yeah, something that I can't control. Like that sucked. Like that was brutal, man. Like that actually like hurt in my stomach. Like driving back, I felt like just in such a limbo. I was like telling myself like, man, I should have just stayed in Australia and just worked and made money and like, and then it was like we got told we're still gonna train and stuff, and then like obviously we didn't train. Like we were supposed to get paid that Friday. We didn't get paid that Friday, and it's like, oh my God, like
Are you still waiting for that Friday?
Actually, they do owe me some money, but they owe me one. I got paid like twice a month. They owe me one check still.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So then, then we met with the league and everything, and we got like was it a compensation package or something?
Okay.
And then from there, so that was like 2 weeks later. So I was literally living in Jersey / Philly, like just hanging out and like we're going for runs, like juggling the ball off the wall, like. Kind of wondering like what is going on.
What is life?
Yeah, like didn't know what to do, and like the transfer window was like closed, like USL rosters were frozen. So it was like, and then I signed my release and I messaged the Michigan Stars on Instagram. Again, I get lucky and they give me their number. I call them and the owner's like, well, can you come tomorrow? And I remember it was like at like 9:00 at night, and I'm like, yeah, like I'm not doing anything. Like I'm waiting to go somewhere.
So at 9:00, you go from Philly to Michigan.
So I pack. We have a meeting with the Fury the next day, and like they try to convince me to stay because like they're gonna fix everything, blah blah blah. And I'm like, honestly, man, like I need to go play. Like I was like, see ya. I literally met with them at like 10 in the morning, and I went home, finished packing. I left my house there at noon, and I got to Michigan at like 11:30 at night.
Wow.
Yeah, man.
That's crazy, man. I mean, like seriously though, like you're just talk about being able to change your environment on the fly, man.
Yeah, man, I remember calling my parents and they were like, "Are you sure you want to go? Like, you don't even know anything." And I'm like, "Well, what else am I gonna do? Like, I need to play."
Pat looks around like, I'm not doing anything.
Yeah, literally, that's literally how I was like. I was like, "Yeah, sure, man. I'll come tomorrow."
Like you're
only halfway across the country, but yeah, why not?
Like you're going to a buddy's house. Like, yeah, I'll come through. Where are you? Michigan? Yeah, just send me the address.
Yeah. But it was funny because as I was driving the Michigan Stars, Detroit City called me because they found out we folded and everything, and they wanted me to come in. So I actually came to Michigan Stars first, and this is kind of where it goes in with like being your own agent. Is, we were talking like numbers and stuff because they were joining NISA in the spring. They were playing NPSL Members Cup right now, which is technically still amateur, but we were still like talking contract and stuff. And I was here for a day, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna go check out Detroit City first. So I went there and like pretty much had like a 1-day trial, and like I did well, and they were like, yeah, like we want you to play with us for the rest of the season. So they go to register me, and I find out because I'm going from professional to amateur, I can't play in a game for 30 days. 30 days.
There it is.
30 days, man. That was the roughest month, I think. Just all in all, from Philly being broke to that, it was like absolute, like, I think the lowest point I'll probably ever get to my career.
You know, you can be a bit naive sometimes at 17, 18, thinking, well, you know, not that you know it all, but yeah, I'm ready for this now. And, you know, I just took a bit of extra time to keep working in grassroots. Yes, I was coaching, you know, I was doing little soccer schools here for, you know, working for my grassroots club, my local club. And I felt that I was ready at that age. And it wasn't until 21, 22 till I did my UEFA B license, which still at that age to start the UEFA B license, it's quite early as a coach. 26, I think 26, 27 before I completed the UEFA A license. And still now, I'm actively seeking to get onto the UEFA Pro license at 34. And, you know, I've had conversations with the FA, and it's very, very competitive to get onto the UEFA Pro license. There's only 18 spaces per year. Wow. There's only one course run a year. So it's, and I even got to the last stage 2 years ago. I got to the last 40 for the Pro License Application Centre, and I walked in the room and I'm up against John Terry. You know, and you know, you're looking around the room thinking I'm the only non-playing ex-professional in the room, and unfortunately I didn't make the last 18 for that particular course. But the experience gained and just having the ability to speak to people like John Terry and others, that was a huge experience. So yeah, I would say you can't saturate yourself with enough football. You know, you've got to be fanatical about it if you want to get to that. And that's the same for a player. You guys will know as players as well. You know, if you don't do the right things and you don't make yourself fanatical about your playing career, you know, you're only going to get to a certain level. And I'm a firm believer in the adage: if you always do what you've always done, then you'll always get what you've always got. You know, and that's one of the sayings which I say to myself most days. You know, how can you push yourself on a little bit more each day?
Mm-hmm. No, I love that. I mean, I'm very interested in England, especially, just being the prestigious footballing country and coaching country that it is. Does it put you at that big of a disadvantage not having a playing career, whether it's a John Terry level or, you know, a League One, League Two, even in these levels? Does it put you at a significant disadvantage in terms of gaining employment or gaining that A license, pro license?
Yeah, and again, it's a really good question. And I'm under no illusions, and I'll be totally honest. I know my lack of a professional playing background could be ultimately what stops me getting some of the higher jobs.
And now you're a coach now, have you found maybe a newfound respect for other coaches, or maybe when you were growing up you didn't realize how much went into it?
Absolutely. You know, I'm glad you said that. And I think that where I've noticed that the most has been with my Stockade experience. Because through the first 3 years of playing, it was really, like I said, I was at the end of my soccer legs, and I was just loving every minute of being able to be a part of a competitive team like that. So my mindset showing up to train or for games when I was playing was really just about having fun. Like I was just looking to compete against these young dudes that they were bringing in, and I was just having fun with it. It was like, you know, I get to train twice a week. I get a game on the weekend. I don't know how much longer I'm going to be able to do this. So it was just like, hey, I'm going to show up and go as hard as I can, you know, and just run until the wheels fall off. And that was pretty much, you know, my mindset with that. Now with the coaching aspect of it, the preparation of everything that goes into it, the mental fatigue in between training sessions, in between games, is something that I was not totally ready for, or just maybe didn't totally expect. I think I knew I would have it on some level, but it was tough to shut off my brain. You know, there were many times in that first season, 2019, where, you know, I'd get home from a training session or get home from a game, and my wife would kind of just look at me and just be like, hello, like, are you here? Are you with us? And I was mentally just like checked out somewhere, you know, thinking about the personnel decisions that we made, thinking about the training the night before, how we can, you know, make sure that we're getting it, you know, to the top level that we want. So without a doubt, the mental component to coaching, the preparation that goes into it, I can say that I probably did overlook it a little bit. And we wanted to be successful. You know, that was the other thing, is that as a player, I knew that I had quality players that were going to be coming in. So I felt like the pieces were there, and it was going to be up to me and the staff, you know, to get these guys to buy in, and to, you know, get us to a championship level. And I thought
I thought for the most part we were able to do that. You know, we had a pretty good season. I had a great coaching staff, which I think was able to help me work through some of these mental things that I was struggling with. But yeah, the mental side of it was definitely a challenge for sure.
Then, I mean, what are my takes about you with Cohen? I've been nothing but kind to you.
I understand.
How is
Sean, I think you need to pull up a picture of Ashley Barnes too.
Hey,
Oh,
yeah.
wait,
Hey,
that's
one time.
weird. Because I already had it prepared. Woo! My boy, Jeff.
Wow. Turn your head to the side.
Uncanny.
Turn your head to the side and look
Mouth
puzzled.
open a little bit.
Look puzzled.
Mouth
Just look
open.
puzzled.
Yeah, that side. Yeah. Yeah, you're
Yeah,
right
there
there.
it is.
Oh man,
That's spot on.
that's
disturbing.
hilarious.
Who originally made that call that it was?
Wait,
was
Sean, go to the side again.
Was it me
It's
or
too
was it
spot
Wick?
on.
Who? Look at it, Meg.
I had to screenshot that. I don't know who made that call originally.
I don't know who
Yeah.
it was.
Who
but
was the original? I
just
don't
a
know.
Brilliant
I'm not
call.
not even trying to take credit for it, but it was an amazing call.
It wasn't me. That's all I know.
I
I
mean,
mean, it had to be you, Wags.
well, this is more for Brad because he's the only one that knows my skill set. But I was watching today.
Oh, now I got to talk about your skill set.
If I could replace anybody, I could replace Gary Cahill right now.
Gary Cahill
Okay,
was
His-
first of all.
his
Hold
pure
on.
biceps.
Wait. Gary Cahill, other than a putrid substitution of Mitrovic today, Gary Cahill was man of the match.
I mean,
Did
he
you
did
guys
what?
watch that?
And you don't think that
Didn't
could
watch
come in and do a man of the match performance?
If
Yeah,
he
is that what you're saying?
doesn't think that I could be just the poorest man's Thomas Suchek or Calvin Phillips, then no, he can't.
Thomas Suchek.
Well, I said the poorest man, the poorest.
The
version.
poorest Tom Suchek? Okay. I mean,
pre 6 goals in 8 games? That was just
like homeless, like
Yeah.
how poor.
So I guess we'll go with Laney. Yeah.
Okay.
Anyways,
Shooter's
no,
got to
Jack,
shoot.
You're not Gary Cahill.
Well, the biggest thing is there's a million different types of leaders, and no one leader, no one way of leading people is the wrong way or the right way. And my biggest challenge, and you guys would face the exact same thing, is that we're used to. So yeah, captains of teams, captain of this. You're used to being a leader, a captain being a leader of a team. So the easiest way that you'd be a leader in sports is by example, so if you do sprints, you'd be the first. If you're the captain, you should be the first every single time. There's no reason for you not to be. If you're you should be basically the best at every single thing, or at least try to be. At least that's what I always took it as when I was growing up. And then when you start going into military, there's so many different aspects. And now you're meeting people, especially when I got to Kings Point, you're meeting people who are not like you, who are not athletes. And so now it's how do you relate to them and lead them? And so you just have to, there's obviously a goal in mind, and then you just have to relate to every single type of person you meet. You can't be closed-minded to just oh, I'm only going to hang out with the athletes, or I'm only going to, learn about the guy. My roommate freshman year, he was homeschooled from Wisconsin, homeschooled his entire life, never played a sport in his life, painted soldiers every single day. And you have to learn how to talk with him, how to lead him and get him motivated to do something. How do you get a guy who's never run a mile to run a mile and push himself to run that mile? That's the best part about, and that's why the opportunity I was given at Kings Point I was lucky for, because you meet all sorts of people. As similar as they are to you, because they serve, they signed up for the service academy, they're really very different than no person was the same.
And I like what you said there. I mean, just the leadership and empathy are two things that go really, really hand in hand. You have to understand the person that you're leading, and in order to get them to reach their potential.
Right. Figure out what makes them tick, and then push them.
Exactly. And I mean, humility is the biggest thing throughout the entire experience. But basically, there's one sentence I would tell myself, probably be something along the lines with, I've gotten pretty lucky along the way. I mean, with every experience, every single thing that I've come across. But I think the biggest thing is to be so hungry no matter how lucky you get, be so hungry to get to a next level, a new level, and keep getting better. And no matter what happens, keep going at it, keep going after it. You could always get better. And that's kind of what we've talked about the entire time, is you could always get better.
Keep moving forward.
Damn right. Keep moving forward is right.
Keep moving
I love
forward.
that.
When I was healthy at PSV, I found myself talking to one of the men's coaches, and I'm just pretty social. And he was like, yeah, I just gone to the US with my family for 3 weeks. And I'm like, oh, like, that's awesome. He coached the U19s and was a little bit with the first team. I'm like, oh, like, what's your name? And he's like, oh, Van Nistelrooy. And I was like, oh, like, I was like, awesome. Like, where did you play? Like, did you play? Where did you play?
Kim.
Yeah. He's like, I played at Real, Manchester United, and then here at PSV. And I'm like, wait a second. I'm like, what's your name? He's like, oh, okay, like, whatever. I go and tell my team. They're like, you're a dumbass. Like, you didn't know who he was. I'm like, no, I didn't know. Like,
He probably loved that though. Like he probably loved that you
Probably
weren't
the
like
first person ever.
growing out
this
or
is
anything.
like the budding of a great friendship. So, so then I break my leg, and he sends me a text and is like, hey, like, just want to see how you're doing, because there were so many people at the game, and like the club is like pretty small, even though like you guys are like, say it's big, like the environment where we train at, like everything's small, everyone knows each other. So like everyone knew that I was the American, the first American on the women's side that broke her leg, and everybody heard it and saw it, and the ambulance came, blah, blah, blah. So he was like, hey, like, just want to check in. How are you doing? And he's like, did Ajax send you anything? And I'm like, no. What do you mean send me anything? Like, and then they had sent, like 2 days later, they had sent like flowers or whatever. And he said he had called whoever he called at the club and was like, yo, you guys need to be like more appropriate and like send something, like,
Wow.
the player broke her leg, whatever. So that was cool. And then he always was just checking in and be like, hey, do you need anything? And in the beginning, and the women's team has come a huge way, but in the beginning, when I was there, we just saw regular doctors. Like, we had our physio, but when we didn't see the men's doctors, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we just went, like, I went to the hospital, I saw a hospital doctor, and he was like, you're going to be out for the rest of the season, when he didn't even know how long the season was.
Right.
You know, like, he was just like, okay, you broke your leg, like, throw it in a cast and see how it goes. Like, let's just wait for it to heal. And of course, that's not my MO. So I was like, well, I want to see a sports doctor. I want to see the men's doctor. Why wouldn't I see the same doctor as the men's team? So I kept pushing for a couple weeks, like week and a half on our team. And, you know, like, everyone's a little bit hesitant around the men's team because it's the men's team. And on the women's side, you're like, okay, like, we're allowed to have this, we're allowed to have that, but let's not step on anybody's toes. And I'm like, well, let's step on everybody's toes, because I'm sitting here with a broken leg. Like, you know, like, I'm the one in a cast up to my hip, can't leave my room because, like, so I need to see the doctor. So I called him and I was like, hey, like, I really want to see the men's doctor. Like, I don't really think that it's fair that, you know, I can't see the same sports doctor as the men. And no joke, he texted me back probably a half hour later. He goes, you have an appointment in 2 hours. And I'm like, let's go. And then I saw the doctor. He was awesome. I got back in 5.5 months, like, definitely pushed the boundaries. And I played like 3 games after that. And
hell yeah.
I quit.
Rude is the plug. Wow.
So yeah. One thing that you guys probably can relate to also is, and I tell a lot of the girls that I work with, if they're trying to play overseas or go to the NWSL, is that if you, let's say you get into a situation and you're there 3 or 4 months and you're questioning, like, your love for the game, or you're questioning, like, why you're playing, and you're not enjoying it, odds are it's the situation you're in and not necessarily that you're not enjoying the game anymore. So you need to change your situation.
Mm-hmm. I love that. Yeah, absolutely.
Because a lot of times you're like, okay, I don't like this anymore, I want to quit. But like, that's not, most of the time that's not the case. It's like, you just need to change the environment you're in. You need to find a team that better fits you, find a location that better fits you. So not to be afraid to change that.
And what is the meaning behind that name?
So the meaning actually comes from when I was 11, 12, when I used to skate with my neighbors, and we would just kind of mess around with, like, the idea of having a skate shop and what we'd call it. And I remember I said I'd call it the Skate Kitchen because I learned how to skate on YouTube, actually. That's where I learned.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Because I'd, like, look up how to do stuff. And I just noticed like I would also look up girl skateboarders just to try to connect to something.
Mm-hmm.
And I noticed in the comments it'd always be like, oh, this girl should be in the kitchen. Oh, so snarky, that overused comments. So then I kind of was like, oh, it'd be really funny if I just called the skate shop the skate kitchen. That's how the name like actually came about. But then when I was 17, when I was 17, I started skating with this one girl, Nina. Well, I was 15, but I kind of moved to the city when I was 17 and met all the other girls. And we wanted to make an Instagram. And I was like, why don't we just name it the Skate Kitchen? And they liked it. That's how it really came about. It wasn't really like, we didn't have any other name. So
No, definitely. I think it's just like anywhere you go, I feel like you gotta indulge in the culture. First thing first, gotta indulge. And one of the biggest things that in Mongolia you need to indulge is the language. The language it's actually the key to opening that country for you as a foreigner. If you can get into the language, maybe at least some words, you try and make an effort every day, and you're just using the language, it would make that experience probably 10 times better for you.
Yeah.
And in terms of the culture, in terms of the culture, I feel like, their culture is very strong and it's very rich, you know. And if you study their people with a lot of pride, because they conquered the world, right?
Yeah.
They conquered. They at one point in time they ruled the world, and they still believe that a lot of their people has Genghis Khan's blood.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. And I felt like I heard it from people as well, but like in America we have like a lot of patriotism as Americans, and like in other places other countries don't really have that. But Mongolia, I feel, is even stronger than the American patriotism. Like they're extremely proud.
Do you see a lot of Mongolian
their
flags and stuff like this around, or okay?
Yeah.
I mean, it's not that type of patriot.
It's not like
different.
It's like an internal thing.
Yeah, it's like
it's very, very pure.
Like I'm
almost.
Mongolian. And I could, I'm strong. Also, I just wanted to say, man, like to you guys, man, like, you guys continue doing what you're doing on and off the field, especially on the field. You guys are doing amazing work. And as I said before, like you've broken that stereotype. You've put yourself in a different stratosphere in terms of like what you can accomplish coming out of college, coming out like for dudes who just want to like continue playing football. You guys are definitely like the benchmark. And yeah, man, congrats, bro. Just keep going, man. Keep going. No limits to where you guys can be in the future.
Thank you, man. We will.
Appreciate that, man.
So one of my favorite quotes is the man in the arena. I don't know if you guys are familiar with it, from Theodore Roosevelt.
Yeah.
But basically it's...
No, I don't know it.
No?
No, please. Please enlighten me.
We should read it.
It's pretty long. I do have it memorized, but I'm kind of on the spot. So I can try my best. So it's not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles, or where the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs, who comes short again and again, because there is no effort without error and shortcoming. But who does actually strive to do the deeds? Who knows the great enthusiasms, the great devotions? Who spends himself in a worthy cause? Who at the best knows, in the end, the triumph of great achievement, and who at the worst, if he fails, at least fails while daring greatly, so that his place shall never be amongst those cold and timid souls that know neither victory nor defeat.
Hell yeah.
Wow. Let's go. All right, let's end it there. I got to go run for time. That's amazing. No. So is that something that's like, really helped you on this journey?
Yeah. Moral of the story, like, just don't be afraid to fail. Like, just put yourself out there, like go for it, no regrets, and like whatever. If you fail, like my career is defined by failure, you know, like those moments of failure, like in the moment, they were the worst thing in the, like it felt like the world was ending, but like at the end of the day, like they were the best thing that could have ever happened to me. So yeah, just kind of embrace failure and, you know, don't let it stop you. Just keep pushing.
Like the biggest thing I would say is like, don't take things for granted. Like it's so dumb, but like we talked about having your head in the next place. I always just had my head early on in the next place. And what changed that was really bad injuries. Like when I broke my ankle and I missed a whole year, you realize like, and I didn't even know what I could do next year. Like shit, like maybe I should really appreciate this. Last thing with Altona, when I got it's called Schambinen syndrome or osteitis pubis, like you now playing, like you appreciate it. You appreciate where you are, where you were. Back then, like when I was 20, I was just like trying to get to the hottest place instead of like, let me try to like do this the right way. Cause I was just a New York hothead at that point. Just like, I think I have a talent, you know, people kind of tell me I'm good. Let me take it instead of like, okay, let me go step by step by step. Cause the only thing like, if you do it the right way, it'll work. There is no answer. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. Like if you do it the right way and you go step by step slowly, when you get out of college, you can make it up there. Yeah. If you do the bouncing around thing, like you can get there, but it won't be secure. Like you'll be going contract to contract. You won't really have like a strong platform to build on. Because if you went like 6th, 5th, 4th, 3rd, like if by the 3rd, like it doesn't work, you can still have 4th, like you still had a good resume instead of like half a year here, half a year here, half a year here, half a year here. And people are like, well, who is this player? They don't have a full story on you.
Right.
You always have to explain yourself and you always have to like go into a trial and do well rather than like having a strong flow of development. You have a lot of games to go on. But the biggest, another thing is like you're playing as many games as you can because that's the only way you'll get better and good game. And like, don't settle for like, people want to reach when they're young to like, I want to get to Manchester United. But you don't know, like if you're at 18, for example, and you got lucky and you signed at Manchester United, you won't play for Manchester United for like 4 years. Just like if you go to Wake Forest and you're not Wake Forest, bro, you will sit on the bench for 3 years. And that is not what you want. That will not get you better. Yeah. Like go to a place where you can play and then see what happens. Because that's where your level is, right? That's where you'll find out your level is. If you go to a place where you can't play, you don't know anything about yourself. You haven't been tested. You haven't shown like, all right, just like when we got to Germany, obviously all of us were kind of a little too good for Oberliga. When we got to Regionalliga, that was our level to see. Like, all right, let's see what we're really about. You know, this is like this is where we can show ourselves. This is the testing part. This is where we are. And like get as many games on as that level and see if you can slowly start to bridge up. Because like going like this and then you get a trial at this club, jump up, go back, lose your ties. It'll never work. Yeah. And don't burn bridges. Big thing. Don't burn bridges. Like do things the right way. Like tell people to their face when you want to, if things aren't working out, don't just ghost them. And then like have to like restart a text message chain like 3 months in advance to tell them that hope they're doing well, to know that like in 3 months you'll have to ask them a question. Yeah. Like just keep things open and be friendly. Like most people, like they'll use their contact as much as they can and then ghost the guy instead of like, and then, okay, in a year, you're going to need me, right? So they start early and they start texting me early and I know the game, but rather than doing that, let's just be open and honest with each other.
Right.
Talk to me from the beginning, or like, I shouldn't have just fucked over so many agents instead of like being honest and, you know, maybe even sacrificing a little bit.
Right.
And then you have those contacts when you do.
Footwork is sponsored by ourselves, but also Kong Fitness and Merchant Designs, baby. Follow us on Instagram at @footwork_podcast. Twitter is @footwork podcast. YouTube and Facebook, just check out Footwork Podcast, search it. Email us if you need anything, any questions at footworkpodcast@gmail.com. And remember, plug, pass. Tell your parents, Amazon delivery guy, mailman, I don't know who, just tell them. Like, subscribe, review, all of it helps. Danke.